Hello, and welcome to part two of the Stefan Dennis interview. If my audio doesn't sound too great here, it's because I've got a new laptop and my microphone doesn't work with it. And I've no idea why. I thought it was supposed to be easier with a new laptop, but rarely are things easy. This one's about 45 minutes worth of Stefan Dennis awesomeness. We still couldn't fit in everything that wanted to be asked. Paul joined me on this one as well, so he was back too for it. And yeah, it was a fun chat. We got into some interesting bits about people like Tim Phillips, his thoughts on the Bishop family being wiped out. So yeah, some interesting stuff. Hope you enjoy it.
That's when good neighbours become good friends.
Where we got to last time then, we pretty much covered the 80s and the early 90s, didn't we? And we kind of got in a little bit to 2005 onwards, but we had to skim past a lot of the really interesting stuff there. And one of them was something you said you liked, which was Izzy and Elle, which was a great dynamic. How was that dynamic with you, and sort of Matt Bathingthwaighte to start with, the Paul and Izzy combination? Because that was fiery, wasn't it?
That was just one of those lucky things. It was just sort of thrown at both of us. I think they obviously the storyliners had plotted it well in advance, but it seemed to us to just come out of nowhere, and it was one of those. I think both on screen and off screen, us as friends and on screen as friends and lovers, a spark that just works. It's and every now and then you get to work with and not always an actress, sometimes an actor, and you'll just really spark off each other. And yeah, she was another one of those partners that I had that it was really great because she liked to experiment as much as I did.
Yes, it was so much fun, and it gave some great material for you and Alan Fletcher as well.
Oh, God, we had some wicked times because, of course, the three of us are best buddies. It's great, and just, so to have that dynamic on screen, that wickedness from Paul and the sort of the fumbling doctor who sort of wasn't quite on top of whatever was happening. It was great. It's fantastic.
There was that amazing scene. I think the only scene we've had in Neighbours of two people in the toilet together, but that was Paul and Carl. And it was that moment, wasn't there, Paul giving that little smirk.
Yeah, that's one of in fact, probably mine and Fletcher's favourite scene that we've ever done together. Because we often talk about it as, if it comes up and people go, oh, what's your favourite scene? That's always the one that we'll say, yes. Which is funny. It was, but I think, and that's why, I think that's why Paul became so loved so quickly on my return, is because he reveled. He was this deliciously evil character that reveled in other people's misery. Your classic villain, I guess, at the time.
He did just enjoy it. He was a villain, but there was a playfulness to him as well, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So there still is.
It was kind of like as if James Bond was a villain.
Yes. Yeah. No, he very much is. So you've got the Paul and Izzy dynamic going on, and then Elle comes in, and that really kind of blew the whole dynamic up, I think, in number 22, didn't it? Because you had just all of these clashes of the different personalities all trying to get on under the same roof. I know you mentioned it in the last interview, that was fun, but how much fun was that with the three of you?
It was just, again, it was fun because Pip just slotted straight in with Nat and I. I mean, she slotted into Neighbours full stop, but she slotted straight into that what was a duo and it made it a trio, and it just worked beautifully. And again, and the reason Pip works so well is for exactly the same reason I was saying about what Nat Bass and I did, was in our experimentation and just sort of seeing how far we could push things sometimes before it became unrealistic. And Pip was right in on that, and consequently, and the more fun we had with our characters, the more fun we had on set, which then in turn made us have more fun with our characters. And I think that's why that all worked so well.
Yeah, the dynamic really did come across well on screen. When you came back,
I mean, they did give us. Sorry, I interrupt. I was going to say, you've got to realize the writers were giving us absolute gold at the time. It was that golden time in Neighbours where, for a brief moment, they actually got away with principal characters doing the unreal, the unrealistic, which is was actually beyond what Neighbours was about. And they got away with it for a while, and that's when, of course, it all came crashing down with Paul's tumor and all of that, because they suddenly realized, I think everybody's kind of went, oops, we've taken this a little bit too far. I think we should pull it back a bit.
That's the thing, because there was exploding fruit vans, we had plane crashes. And all
we had the E-type Jag blow up. Yeah, it was brilliant. So, and and just the wickedness and what I loved was Elle in her innocence. She was still not Paul's protege by any means, but she still always had Paul's back, and vice versa, because they were really tight father and daughter. But the things that he used to make Elle do was just unspeakable. But she'd still go, "Oh, you're a bastard. Oh, but I love you."
It was so much fun. Would you remember too much about the plane crash storyline, sort of how that all came about? Because for you, I guess that must have been a bit like, well, this isn't what we used to do on Neighbours, because before it was
no, exactly.
People getting shot by duck hunters or things like that. That was kind of as big a drama as we got. Now we've got planes falling.
Yeah, a plane crash was pretty dynamic. Well, a plane crash was Neighbours' version of the Machine Gun Wedding. I think it was a way to get rid of some cast and move things along and rearrange things.
I think the plane crash storyline for a lot of the fans was always a fantastic one to watch, and it was the music and everything in those episodes was brilliant. It was the choice to get rid of the entirety of the Bishop family. I think was one that irked a few people because, again, that was another set that Paul had a great dynamic with David and Lil in very different ways.
Exactly. Well, he had the affair with Lillian, and and she and that was great. She was Marcella was fantastic. She's one of the few actresses. In fact, I think she's the only actress, because she used to be able to cry on cue. Literally, you could say, "Okay, Marcella, cry," and she would. Within 5 seconds, she'd be crying. And I said, jokingly one day, I said, and I think it was Nat Bassano, I can't remember, and said, "You're so good at that. You could probably cry and laugh at the same time." And then we went, "Go on," and she did. She had tears pouring out while she was laughing. It was great.
That's amazing. And David as well was another fun rivalry for Paul.
I love Damo. Damo was brilliant. You're talking about Damien Bodie, who played...
No, I wasn't actually. We'll get to him. I was talking about David
Dylan.
Bishop. We will get to Kevin Harrington, but we will get to Dylan.
Oh, sorry. David Bishop. Yeah, sorry. Yep, I'm with you. I thought you said Damien. That was amazing, and because I have the greatest respect for Kevin. I think he's a brilliant actor, that guy. Sometimes he's quite underrated in his skill, but I used to watch some of his scenes and just be, wow, he's amazing, because he used to do everything so not matter of fact, that's the wrong expression, but just he could do deadpan. He'd do comedy absolutely deadpan. He was almost like a Buster Keaton. And that's what used to make it work so brilliantly. And his mimicking of Harold Bishop, that was superb.
Yeah, like even in the 80s, he channeled him, didn't he? When he came in for that first stint, yeah, channeled him quite well. Let's talk about Damien Bodie then as Dylan, because Dylan was probably Paul's first proper protege that we saw that wasn't family.
Yes, yes, he was.
And it was very tumultuous, wasn't it? There was a lot of up and downs. Dylan tried to kill him, I think, at one point. Like, I take it. That was probably. I think he trapped him in a car at one point and tied him up around the time that Stingray died. Paul, do you remember that at all? Am I completely making that up?
No, that's very true.
Okay,
that doesn't sound about right. Okay, you've got one up on me there. You probably have quite a few up on me. I don't remember that one, but it sounds about right. Yeah,
it does. But what was that like to play between the two of you? Because there was an instant on-screen chemistry between both of you. Just worked, even when he came back this year.
Again, and that's what I mean when I said, it's not always with an actress that you have the chemistry with. You can have that same chemistry with an actor. And I think Damo and I both had that, and again to this day, I mean, he's. I know it's an expression that gets bandied around the industry all the time, going, "Oh, he's such a lovely bloke. Oh, he's such a genuine bloke." People always say, but Damo was. I always remember Tim Phillips and Damo were probably my two favorite actors to work on the show with, as far as just gorgeous men who you just loved being around, and they were always effusive. Always, I said they are always. They're not dead. They're always effusive. They never saw them in a down mood. Never saw them in a bad mood. Always got optimism in their thoughts and something positive to say to anybody that they encounter. Just unbelievable. Yeah.
And that's because that was all of the time where Paul was poisoning Laster's Lake, wasn't it? And he was trying to destroy Ramsey and everything, like arch villain for Neighbours material. Yeah.
Which of course, and he got his little protege to do it. He didn't do it.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. He got Dylan
Yeah.
to, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Which was super fun. I'm trying to
I
think. So
don't,
we
see, I
go.
don't know how Paul got. I don't know how Paul got away with that one either. It's like, God Almighty, the amount of stuff that Paul got away with.
He's just
You
Teflon.
know,
Like
it's
nothing sticks.
obviously, you know, what characters do you know have gotten away with a grand arson, murder, uh, poisoning an entire waterway? I mean, come on, really?
It's
And
well,
his
he's nearly had
villains.
his comeuppance a few times because I think the people that have tried to call him out haven't been the law, but they've been his own family. So, which brings us
Yes,
neatly
yeah,
to Robert and Cameron.
yes, yeah,
What was that like to film? Because obviously you had the same guy playing the two different characters. You had the triplets from Gale that have now grown up into Elle, Cameron, who's nice, and Robert, who's not so nice. That must have been fun, right? To have all of that going on with Robert trying to kill you and everybody else.
yeah. It was an interesting storyline. I sort of, I'll be honest with you, at the time I was having difficulty keeping up. I did, but you know, it was.
I'm not surprised. There was a lot
But
going on.
yeah, because and because of the fact that we had Adam playing both roles, and he was really I kind of I thought, and this is me being, and I don't mean this in any way bad against Adam because he's bloody
No.
brilliant. He's actually a really bloody good actor, and you saw that
Yeah,
when
he is.
more recently. But I kind of felt he could have done it a little bit differently. I'm not saying better, but a bit differently the first time around when he played the two. But because when he plays Robert, oh my Jesus, he's evil. He's like, oh, you know, he makes Paul look like a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, yeah, he does. It's a really chilling performance.
Mm.
Stefan, can I ask, was the plan to always bring Fiona Court back for that storyline, or did it evolve into that?
No, that was always part of the plan of that whole storyline. Because I can't remember if that was around. Was that around the 30th, or was it before that?
That was around the 20th.
No,
Yeah,
because I came back to the 20th.
That was, yeah, I think it was just after you
No.
come back. I think that was.
Was it
And
really?
everything.
Because I came back for the 20th anniversary.
And
That
so
was
that was
the
2005, and then Roberts came back and tried to kill you with a mine
was it
shaft in
2005?
2006.
So hang on a second, because I came back to Australia in 2003 November, and I think I started back on Neighbours at around July or August 2004. So you would have got that in 2005. Yeah, beginning of
Right at the start. And 2006, I'm pretty sure was Gale's first return because it was the big 5,000th
Yeah,
episode of Paul being trapped down the mine shaft.
Yeah.
But that's right. Yeah, when another time Paul nearly died.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, no, but in answer to your question, that was always part of the plan, was the whole scenario.
And I understand, or remember reading that you were quite instrumental in bringing Fiona back into the show.
Yeah, every time I used to hound the producer saying, when are we having feedback?
And we had it back again recently as well, didn't we? Which is lovely to see. This year's been a bit of a nostalgia. Obviously, it has been because last year. I keep saying there we go. This year, last.
But, actually, it was the year before last, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, when all the wives came back. Yeah.
What is time at the moment? With the 20th, we'll back to that as well. We could spend the whole interview just debating when things happen because of time.
2019 is when they got married. Yeah.
So
that's when all the wives came. Yeah.
We've skipped over a poor wife here who we didn't really talk about last time either, which is bless her, Lynn Scully, which is
Lynn, bless her.
A very odd pairing.
Very, very odd pair. I think that was kind of a bit of a. And, I don't mean this in a bad way towards anybody, but I think it was a bit of a clutching at straws, that one, because that kind of took both Andrew and I by shock, Andrew Arthur and I by shock, or surprise, I should say, because we were kind of like the same thing. It was like, okay, we ran with it because that was our job, and it was, and she's another fantastic actress. I've been very, very fortunate with the women who have played my wives. The actresses who have played my wives have all been great. I've been very lucky, but it's and Janet and I, as I say, we ran with it because that was our job, and that was and we were given the scripts, and the script said to do this, and we did. But it was and to this day, I don't know if they the writers went, oops, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And that's why Paul and Lynn split up so early, literally 3 hours after they got married,
Yeah.
or whether that was always planned. I got no idea. I don't know. But
I did wonder actually whether, because Janet left the show so quickly after that, I did wonder whether that was planned as part of her exit. So they had to find a way of getting her out the show.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, that make it legitimate, yeah.
Because she
Paul
had
was
a
having it
gun.
off with Rosie at the same time.
Yes. And then Pepper, not long afterwards as well, actually. Lothario Paul.
Yes.
Memory. I do vaguely remember a scene of Paul's leg being thrown across the room in a moment of passion.
Oh, that was with Pepper Steiger.
Yes.
Yeah, who was played by Nikki Scanlon. Nikki Whelan. And yeah, that was meant to be a gag. That was just an in joke for the crew.
Was it really?
And we did it. Yeah, we did it, and on the first take, we did the cutaway of the clothes being thrown in, an item of clothing, another item of clothing, and Jojo, our director, Javita Shaughnessy, who was our director, she had a wicked sense of humour, and she said, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if we threw the leg?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, it'd be great, it'd be hilarious." And she said, "Guys, just do it for the crew. Just don't tell them. Just do it." And we did it. And it went through to the screening where the producers watched it and they kept it in.
Did you know it was going to be kept in, or did you only find out when you saw it?
No. That was we had no idea. We were hysterical when we found out it'd been kept in.
It was just an iconic Neighbours moment, I think, between Paul's leg or Bouncer's dream. I don't know which one's the more iconic.
Yeah.
One of them are. So after Lynn was, and again, we're kind of streamlining here, but after Lynn was then Rebecca, which I always think is the most interesting relationship for Paul.
Yeah, interesting you should say that. There's that word twice.
Yes.
Because no, she was. And again, it wasn't that it was an odd pairing, it was an interesting pairing. It was
odd, but it worked, I think, Paul and Rebecca.
Yeah, because and it was kind of a little bit like Jane and I off screen, because Jane's by no means a prude, please. She's not at all. She can be quite naughty, but she was kind of more your Julie Andrews, and I was more your Dick Van Dyke, if you like. And that was kind of a little bit like that in the wedding of the marriage of Paul and Rebecca as well. She was sort of very much goody two shoes, and Paul wasn't at all. And to the point where I think a couple of times he tried to drag her across to the dark side, and she'd sort of be tempted, but then at the last minute her morals took over.
Until she pushed him.
It was. Say again.
Until she pushed him off the mezzanine, which again probably wasn't the dark side. I think Paul had that coming.
Yeah. That was kind of that was a culmination. That was kind of you going, oh, hang on a second, has Paul had the effect and it's finally worn off on her, or is she just giving him his comeuppance? I think the answer is both, possibly.
Probably a bit of both. There was another person in that dynamic as well that you had a great rapport with, which was James Sorensen as Declan. Do you remember?
Yes, yeah.
Because that's one of the more controversial, I guess is the nicer way to put it, recast that the show's had, when James obviously left and you had Erin come in. Did that change the dynamic for you guys on set as well, have to continue this kind of fractured Paul Declan relationship with somebody completely new?
No, because it's happened so many times before.
I guess you must be used to it by now, yeah.
Yeah. I know that sounds really blasé, but Neighbours is renowned for doing that and getting away with it every time. And and it's kind of it's testament to how good Neighbours is as a soap opera. I've said it before. It's we don't write Shakespeare and we don't perform Academy Award winning stuff. We perform soap operas. We produce soap operas. And I think for a show to be able to go. That was the character looked like that yesterday, and on Monday he's going to look like this, and the audience goes, all right then.
It doesn't take long.
Yeah, and it doesn't take as long. And the classic one is the Pierce Grayson.
Yes.
You know, where and that was through no fault of Tim Robards, who you know, he was unfortunately he became a victim of COVID in as much as he had to stay up in Sydney because his wife had just had a child. And long story short, you know, he was obviously felt more obligated to his family than Neighbours, fair enough, so he had to stay in Sydney, and therefore they had to recast Don. And you know, now it's going to be interesting to see now because the character of Pierce Grayson is very open to coming back because of the character of Hendrix. So it would be very, very interesting to see now if who would they bring back as
I think just
Pierce Grayson?
alternate.
Would they bring back Tim Robards or would they bring back Don Honey?
I think just bring them both back and just alternate them on a scene by scene basis, just for consistency. Just going through this quickly, we've had a few questions that I just want to before we run out of time. I don't want to miss them. Somebody's asked, you worked with Colette quite closely on Prisoner, or was it fun to work with her again when she came on to Neighbours?
Yeah, it was actually really great. It was actually really great this time around. We had an instant rapport with each other, even though the last time we worked with each other literally was on Prisoner, which was I think that was 1980. So from 1980 through till I don't know when she came in, was it 2014 or something?
Something like that, yeah.
And you know, so there was that distance between. And yet it was kind of like we'd worked on Prisoner the previous week. But I was as green as buggery when I worked with Colette the first time on Prisoner. I think even though I think that had been my third stint on Prisoner, it was my first long one. Before that, I'd just done sort of guesties in one episode. But this one was an ongoing. I think I was in it for 6 weeks or something. And I was playing quite a significant principal character, guest character in the show because I became Doreen's boyfriend. It was this runaway kid, and she escaped from jail with him, and they were on the run and yada yada. Anyway, and I was as green as buggery. I had no idea. I was this young actor, and I felt like I was in the den of wolves, but was the female version of wolves, because there were all these sort of women who were playing hardened criminals anyway, and they were all, you know, veterans of stage and television. And there's this young green actor. I think I was playing a 16-year-old. I wasn't actually 16. I was a bit older than that, but I was, mentally I wasn't. And so it was fun. It was great fun doing it. Interesting that Colette and I sort of, you know, had that instant click.
It's still there on screen now. Paul and Sheila is such a fun one. Sort of the Bags nickname has just stuck, hasn't it?
Yeah. And we've been very lucky, probably because we both, you know, sort of the producers recognise, one, our history, and two, our veteranship, if you like. We've been, you know, you talk about being instrumental. Colette and I have been very instrumental in how we've orchestrated the relationship between Paul and Sheila, and it's a great one. It really, really is a great one. It's the same as it's that sort of, there's those subtleties there that the audience know about it, but just don't know when they're going to pipe up. And it's exactly the same as the one that Paul's got with Carl. You know, Paul says that Carl's an idiot all the time, and this and you're stupid and your money pinching and all of that. But when there's a poignant moment, and you know, whereby you have to see them both as parents or best mates or something like that in a moment of tragedy or whatever, it's just really interesting to see that dynamic completely twisted.
I do think that Paul does genuinely like Carl, but I think he just gets very annoyed with him at the same time. Is kind of how I read it.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same with Sheila. Paul genuinely likes Sheila, but just she's a pain in the tits.
And are there any storylines from over the years that you would like to revisit as Paul? Are there any that spring to mind that you were like, that was a really good one? Or are you just more happy to kind of go with the flow?
Oh, you know, that's. I would have to say that, because what's the point of revisiting I mean, certainly revisit relationships. You know, I'd love Pippa to be back on the show. I'd love, you know,
Yes, me
there's so
too.
many. I would love to come back for, you know, a lengthy time or a short time or whatever. But as far as revisiting storylines, we kind of do that anyway. Because that life, I think we were talking about this last time, you know, the thing about Neighbours, people go, oh, but you know, you did that storyline ages ago. And I go, well, yeah, that happens in real life. You know, things happen to people more than once, or happen to a street more than once, or a city more than once, or whatever, you know what I mean? And
Circles round.
so I'm quite happy to just sort of, you know, deal with what they throw at me. And that's always fun anyway, you know, trying to keep on your toes there, or they keep you on your toes there. But I was going to say something. I can't remember what it was.
That happens to me all of the time. So after Paul and Rebecca split up, Paul was in this bit of a strange area for a while where there wasn't sort of a romantic interest until Naomi came along. But he did have quite a strong relationship with Kate.
Yes.
So
Kate,
Ashley Brewer, who was amazing in the role.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about Ashley Brewer, actually. How was that sort of to build that dynamic between the two of you? Because Paul and Kate, I think, was a really interesting one in the end.
Yeah. It was a very slow burn, the Paul and Kate one. Again, it was sort of, I kind of never knew where they were until more towards the end when they became very close. You know, up until that point, they were, they were, Kate and Sophie and Will were the children of Jill Ramsey, Paul's supposed half-sister, yeah. Who was actually played by my sister. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know. I completely forgot until you said it, but I did know that actually. Now you mentioned it.
Yeah, Perry, my sister actually played the role of Jill Ramsey.
But you're keeping quite in the family now, because you've had sort of your wife Gail has been on the show as an arch nemesis of Paul for a while, which must have been great fun.
Yeah.
Because wasn't she the person who ended up being orchestrating him blowing up Lassiter's?
Yes, she was, and the death of Josh and Adam Willis, not Adam, what's his name, Doug Willis.
Doug Willis. Yeah, she killed Doug.
Yeah. That was indirectly, but yeah, poor Doug. And I always remember that was so sad. It was like after the explosion and all of that, and there was this. I always remember that shot of just Doug Willis dead, lying on the lawn, just, you know, laid out on the lawn, with all of these people sort of running around. I thought, you know, that's what it would actually be like in real life. You know, you sort of a body during all the chaos and the frantic chaos of a tragedy like that. It would, you know, a body would be just discarded and forgotten about for the time being. And I thought, I always remember that image, and I thought that's actually really, it's quite real.
Yeah,
anyway,
it was. And then straight after that one, though, they did have Ghost Doug then sort of hovering over.
Yeah.
Doug, so they had to have some neighbours in there too.
We like a ghost on Neighbours.
It's been a while. Actually, it's been a while. Probably Jim and the Bauble was probably the last one. So back to Kate then. When Kate was killed off, so do you remember in 2015, I think it was, when it was yourself, Tim Phillips, Anne Charleston and Olympia Valance were all in London for the press thing? There was a roundtable interview for that one. And one of the questions I asked you there was how you felt about Kate's death, considering they couldn't show any blood at the time, and whether you thought that impacted it. And you were very honest in your answer of saying you didn't like that, like you thought it kind of took away from it by not having blood. How has it been to have the show go from that sort of G rating that it had, where you couldn't even say the word sex, to what it is now, where it's a lot more, I don't say adult orientated, but it's real now. You can get away with a lot more. It must be quite freeing to be able to do that.
Well, it's funny because even though we've got a PG rating, we're still at 6:30 here, which puts us in the G slot. Even though we still have to, we can't suddenly just, you know, be carte blanche with, you know, sex, blood and mayhem. We still have to be reasonably careful, but there are a lot more that we can get away with now. Oddly enough, Home and Away gets away with that a bit more because they're at 7 o'clock, which is the new watershed.
Half an hour's difference, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's and it's right. You know, I felt at the time. I felt that and it's just my opinion. I felt the whole Kate's death thing was underplayed. I thought
Yeah.
the whole thing, even the way that it was written, and I sort of, and I didn't really get the opportunity to play it exactly like I wanted it. I think if it had been a film, we'd had a lot more time and a lot more, attention to detail. It would have been a different scenario. But being Neighbours and being super fast, but I actually spoke with the director because I hated the way it was written. That Paul was just standing back. I was just, and whether he's in shock or whatever, he wouldn't. Paul's the sort of guy that would get in. It was his niece, his favorite niece, dying in front of him. And they just had me standing there with, being comforted by people. And I said, no. I said, look, Paul would be there going, no, stop, don't stop. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. Anyway, we managed to sort of get as much of that type of scenario in as possible. But I did. Between you and me, I thought it was underplayed a little.
With the thing with Kate is
because it was shocking. The whole Kate thing was shocking. That the death of her.
It was, yeah. It was such a good moment. But you're right. It was rushed because I think from memory we had her funeral in the same episode as she got shot. Yeah. The next episode she died, and by the end of it she was buried. And it was like, whoa. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And with a gravestone, a headstone there already.
Yeah.
And I one of the things when she got shot, I couldn't for the life of me understand why it was scripted and directed to carry her from the rotunda into the plaza at Lassiter's. I couldn't understand that at all. But anyway,
I thought about that. But you're right. Yeah. Why would they move her?
Yeah.
Well, it's not even so much move her, but if you're going to move her, why would you move her into the centre plaza of Lassiter's?
So everybody could see.
A dying woman, yeah.
That's funny. I'd never even thought about. I've got a few issues with how Kate died, but I've never even considered that. So now I have another. After to go back a little bit, obviously Kate died, but when she came in, were you aware of sort of the fan reception, not to Kate or to the other actors that came in, but just to how they were introduced? Because it's probably one of the most controversial things Neighbours has done in terms of the fan base, is changing a lot of what actually happened in the past. So particularly with the character of Helen, who was supposed to have hidden this child away. Do you sort of have any sort of thoughts on that at all on the retcon, or were you just happy to, this is the script, I'll play it out. I don't really think too much about it.
Yeah, it was sort of, again, it's because we've learned to deal with so many weird and wonderful things that sometimes you don't. And we've actually got a bit of a saying now, and it's literally because, and we're not alone. It's like I'm watching the Clone Wars with my son at the moment, and he's taking me through the entire 7 series. Yeah, there's 112 episodes. I'm actually enjoying it, but it's like, can't pick that shit to buggery. But we sit there and enjoy it. Occasionally we have a little chuckle about, oh God, that was a bit far there. And it's the same. You could absolutely pick Neighbours to bits. On every level, but again, because it gets away with it with its sheer entertainment. And I'm going to say, and we have a saying on set. When we do question, because we do quite often, the actors with the director, because you got to remember we don't have a rehearsal anymore. What we do, rehearse, record, which is we'll have a couple of rehearsals and then we'll record it on set in studio. No, we don't have rehearsal days anymore. So
straight in.
It's fly by the seat of your pants acting. It really is. I don't know of any other shows that don't have rehearsal anymore.
Is that due to COVID, Stefan? Because I think
No, we've been doing it for years now. We went from, we used to have 2 days rehearsal and 3 days taping in the studio and 3 days location, and then we went from that eventually to just one table read of all the episodes for that block, and we do that in like 3 hours in an afternoon, normally on a Monday, and then it went from that to not even doing that, and we're now 5 days studio and 5 days location.
Wow.
But I was saying, and so what we do, because we're straight in, we will even, we've read it at home and the night before, and we've gone right, and we've made all our notes and all of that, and we go, hang on a second, I've got to talk about this. So we go to the director just before the scene, we go, this is not really right, this is not going to work, and we end up tweaking it so it does work. And we have that. We're very fortunate that our producers trust us enough that they do. They let us have a wee bit of levity with being able to change the script so it actually works, because they realise in the haste that the scripts are written, and that's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that the machine works.
Yeah.
Our writers, it's not that they're bad; they're exceptionally good, but they are under the pump, producing this material so quickly. So yeah, there are flaws that come through, which in the end we pick up. We're on the front line, if you so to speak, and we pick it up on the front line, because if we don't, then it gets through, and then it's too late. So we do, but there will be times when we literally say, "No, don't pick it. Don't pick the thread. Don't pick the thread." Whole suit's going to fall apart. So yeah,
it's good that it's a collaborative process, though.
Just say it with a straight face, and you'll be right.
So we've got got probably about 10 minutes. So Tim Phillips is another one I'd like to speak about, because I think he's a character that's sort of, I guess, perhaps strangely, he's somebody that I'd really love to come back out of everybody from Paul's past.
Here's a relation of Paul's that I would love to come back. Elle and Daniel are back in a heartbeat, absolute heartbeat.
I think Tim Phillips was let down a little bit with some of the storylines he got, because he came in as this breath of fresh air character. And then he was instantly put into this love triangle. And that's pretty much all he did for quite a long time. He had a few spars with Paul, but there wasn't a chance to really get into him, I thought.
I think they lost the character with Tim, which is why they ended up getting rid of him, it's a shame when when it doesn't work and the actor is the one that suffers because of it. But that's the business, it's not like, oh God, the end of the world. And Tim, he understood, he completely understood. It was just, but I think everybody got a bit lost with the character, because he came in as almost a hippie, if you like. He was this hippie love child character, which was really cool. And he was such a juxtaposition to Paul, and the idea of putting Paul and Daniel together, I thought was genius. It was the Odd Couple.
It really was.
It was the Odd Couple all over again, and it was absolutely brilliant. And we were so in love with that idea. And then they started changing it. And they tried to make Tim's character more like Paul, or not make him like Paul, but trying to get him to sort of accept and be under Paul's wing, and it was like,
he became business-like, didn't he?
Yeah, it worked so brilliantly at the beginning when they were the Odd Couple.
And the relationships.
Paul was desperately trying to change Daniel, and Daniel was desperately trying to change Paul, but they knew they couldn't do it. And that was the dynamic that worked. That was what was so brilliant about it.
And they ended on a bit of a sour note as well, because from memory, Daniel left around the time that Paul was under suspicion for blowing up Astor's again. Yeah. And there was never any resolution to that. So it's good to know that you'd want him back, because hopefully somebody will hear this and go, let's get Tim Phillips back, because he was good.
He was brilliant. Because I don't know if the hardened fans would know, but he originally played the character of Fox, which was Paul's imaginary character when he was undergoing the brain tumor.
Which I always like to think is that Paul just saw a photo of Daniel and then conjured him up that way. That's how I explain that in my head. It's the same person.
Mind you, he wasn't. He would have been a hell of a lot younger back then, though.
Yeah, he would. So let's kind of finish up, I guess, on Therese. So when Therese first came into the show, there was an instant spark, I'd say, between Paul and Therese, from the moment that she turned up. But was it always the plan for Therese and Brad to split up and Paul and Therese to get together? Because I know you've said you wanted it to last a while, but was the plan there from the start, from your memory?
No, I don't think so. No, I'm going to sound like a mushroom here, but I do not know what the breakdown of the whole Willis scenario and family dynamic was all about. I even though Paul, I was involved indirectly. I wasn't really paying, because I had so much going on with other stuff, other storylines as well. Probably wasn't paying enough attention to the whole dynamics of the breakdown of the Willis family. But yes, but I don't. That wasn't. My understanding is that wasn't orchestrated from the beginning. I think that sort of developed over time. It wasn't. I don't think that was the plan all along.
I guess it was probably because of how well you and Rebecca seemed to get on screen and off screen, I guess. Because on screen, there's just, say, instantly, the first scene you had, there was a chemistry there between the two of you. And perhaps it is that they noticed that and went on from there. But it's certainly, as we said before, Therese is probably the next big love after Gail. And
I would say,
if Paul was ever to sort of cheat on Therese now, like, do you think that would be one step too far for him? We know he's done it before, but with Therese in particular, do you think now he's like, right, I'm sticking with it. I don't want to do these sort of things. I want to make this work.
Well, it's funny because for the first time ever, I think Paul actually wouldn't want to.
It could be interesting to see how it works with if Therese was to cheat on him.
That's already happened. That happened with it's happened twice in Paul and Therese's relationship. Once with Gary Canning and once with his son Leo.
That's a strange one, wasn't it, with Leo?
Yeah,
like,
I know. I think that was another one that was sort of like, oh, let's grab a storyline. What can we do? Oh, that'll do.
Do you think that's because you and Rebecca were so keen on dragging this out, on sort of having them not become this married couple so quickly? Do you think that was the point? Once they had Therese and Leo, they were like, right, we've done all we can. We need to get these two properly together now.
Yeah, I think. Well, we succumbed to it when Jason, our EP, Jason Herbison went over to London, and they were doing a bit of a powwow with all the guys at Channel 5, and apparently Channel 5 had run a survey, either when they were there or shortly before they got there, about Paul and Therese and should they be together. And it was almost unanimous that everybody wanted Paul and Therese together. So that Jason said, we can't do it. We can't push it any longer. We got to do it. We went, oh, all right then. Just as long as they don't, fall into marital bliss.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen with Paul and Therese, is it? A couple of quick fires then. So Don't It Make You Feel Good? I think it is a tune, and I will defend it till my dying day. That's featured in the show twice now. The first time David Hoffman, wasn't it, who came in sort of humming it as Oliver Barnes, and then quite more overtly in the recent lip syncing episodes. Sort of, I'm assuming that was partly your idea, was it, or did they approach you to ask if they wanted to use it?
No, they approached me. And I loved it. I loved when they said, I went, oh yeah, you got to do that, because they said to me, oh, how do you feel about that? You're right. I'm like, yeah, it'd be brilliant. And that's why I insisted on Paul having the crack about Carl destroying the song. He said it was a shame because I quite like it.
I mean, to have Ryan Maloney and Alan Fletcher, of all people, I think, performing that was inspired.
Yes,
in fact, that whole episode was inspired.
Yeah,
it was such fun. And yeah, obviously,
I think one of my all-time ever favorite episodes is episode 7,000. Have you seen that? You must have.
That the lottery ticket one?
Yes. That goes down in my history books as one of the best ever. I think it was on Toadie's bum. Carl got it because that was the gag, was because Carl was kissing the ticket, kissing it, and they go, "That's been on Toadie's bum."
It's just the brilliant comedy that Neighbours does so well. And is there a storyline, just before we finish up, or a moment or such where you're not a fan of what's happened? Is there sort of a time where Paul's done something and you've been like, I really don't want to do this. I don't think Paul would do this. Is there anything that stands out?
Oh God.
I mean, not an easy question. It's been a long time, but
no, because I've liked all the villainous stuff. I've liked all the womanizing. I've liked. I tell you, but you know what? It's really weird. And you mentioned this before one time, and I think it's more the actor speaking here rather than the character.
Yeah.
But the demise of the Bishop family, I didn't like that. I didn't like the demise of the Bishop family. I thought at the time they shouldn't have got rid of them, and I felt dreadful because not only I felt that it was. I always felt that Kevin, he didn't, because I asked him years later, but I always felt that Kevin had a bit of a bee in his bonnet because he felt that I was responsible for them all losing their jobs because of the whole, the way that they constructed the storyline. And I thought, there was that suspicion that I'd gone to the producers and gone, I want my character to be with such and such and such, and that, because I was supposedly Stefan Dennis who could get what I wanted. And I was pleased, pleased to know that that wasn't the case at all. But that was one I never liked, the demise of the Bishop family.
It's an interesting one because I don't think anybody did. I know Ian Smith as well didn't like it, did he?
No.
Which was,
it was a really fantastic family of characters that really worked, and were all played by really great actors as well.
Yeah, all absolutely fantastic. Listen,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming back again. It was lovely to talk to you. So that was the lovely Stefan Dennis, and he is a lovely man. He's so giving in the interviews, which I really like when I speak to people like that who will just genuinely give their honest thoughts on it. They won't try and sugarcoat things. It's why I really want to speak to Colette Mann at some point, because she's like that as well. Yeah, loved talking to him. Hopefully you get the chance to do it again at some point soon. This month, hopefully, we should have Lucinda Cowden coming on to talk about the glory days of Melanie Pearson, and what a conversation that'll be, because it's hard to find a more fun character than Melanie. So yeah, looking forward to that one. A few others on the horizon as well, and yeah, if you want people to come on as well, let me know. Tell me who you want on, and we'll see if we can all target them together to get them to come on. I'm sure there's ways to do it. Thank you so much for listening to this. Hope you enjoyed it, and talk to you again next time.